You are listening to the Berlin House Music Podcast.
Cool, so my name's Imad, in brackets, from Berlin. I'm actually from Canada, but I'm also not from Canada. It's actually a little confusing where I'm from, so it really doesn't matter. Point is, I live here in Berlin, been here for the last 11 years, moved here when I was 12, went to high school here, and I'm currently studying at the HTW. What else would you like to know?
So that's a very interesting thing generally because I think the main reason we connected so well in the first, like when we met each other, is because of your background and it being so complicated.
Yeah.
Because I remember asking you where you're from, and you replied, I think that's a complicated story. Basically.
Yeah, that sounds like something I would say.
Yeah. And I remember that is exactly what I would say to people when they ask where I'm from.
Yeah,
like, hey, wait a minute.
I think you even told me that I should guess where you were from, which is 100% something that I do to people when they're like, where are you from? And I'm like, you have 3 guesses. Go for it. And obviously, they always get them wrong. They always hit me with something like, you're definitely Arab? And I'm like, no. Try again. Then they're like, are you maybe Latin American? I'm like, try again. And then they're like, are you American? And I'm like, deet, incorrect. So they always get them wrong. And I remember you did the same thing because I did not guess it right either.
Yes. Yeah, because it's Imad is an Arabic name.
Yeah.
And my cousin's name is actually Imad. So I was like, hey, wait a minute.
Hey, buddy, I think I know that name.
Exactly. So, okay. You're from Canada. You were born there, basically.
See, that's where it gets complicated. I wasn't born there. I was born in Austria. Why was I born in Austria? My dad was just there working, coincidentally. Okay. So, when people get to that, then they're like, okay, so you're Austrian. And I look at the guy and I'm like, no, definitely not. Funny enough, they didn't even give me a passport when I was born there. They're like one of the countries where if your parents aren't from Austria, you're not Austrian. You're whatever your parents are. And my parents at the time were Indian, so they gave me like a overseas Indian passport and said, have a nice day. Great country.
So they basically kind of gave you a visa.
Yeah. They said, yeah, you're allowed to stay in the country. We don't care if you're born here.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little weird.
So both of your parents are from India?
Yeah, but honestly, when my parents introduce themselves, they don't say they're from India. They say they're from Kashmir. Kashmir is like for those who don't know, is like the northern part of India, between Pakistan and India. It's like a state that doesn't actually want to be part of either country, but because of some sad history that it's gone through, doesn't actually have a choice. So the state is split in half, and half of it is part of Pakistan, and the other half is Indian. And my parents are from the Indian part, from Srinagar.
Okay.
So, yeah, I usually try to explain that, because if people look at me, then they say, but, man, for someone who comes from India, you look mighty pale. And I look at them and I say, thank you. I'm very glad that you have noticed that I'm not as dark-skinned as some people are from India, but, India's a really big place. Yeah. A lot of people don't seem to know that, but, it's okay. They're always learning.
True. Well, generally there is a lot of stereotyping.
Definitely.
But, from the other hand, we like to put things in boxes.
Yeah, it's a lot easier for the brain. The second you label something, it's like, oh, okay. It's the same way when people ask me, like, yo, where are you from? And I'm like, I'm from Canada. Then they're like, okay, but, like, where are you really from? And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, I'm from Canada. Like, that's the answer. Like, no, but, like, how do you put it? Like, where are your parents from? And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, I guess they're from North India. And then they're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And when they say that makes sense, it doesn't actually make sense at all, because then they're asking about a different question than what they actually asked. What they're actually saying, oh, yes, that makes sense to, is the fact that their brain says, that's why he looks the way he does, because he's from India. And I'm like looking at them and I'm like, I know what's going on in your head, but I'm not going to call you out.
Yeah.
But in retrospect, yeah, it's strange. Even nowadays, like, I mean, I've been here for like 11 years, and then when people ask me like where I'm from, I'm like, yeah, I guess I'm from Berlin. And they're like, but, like, you probably moved here like a year or two ago, right? I'm like, no, I've been here for like 11 years. And they're like, oh, wow, I've never met someone who's lived in Berlin for that long. And I'm like, oh my, okay. It's quite funny. It's also probably why a lot of people like don't actually think that I speak German.
Yeah.
Just because I speak a lot of English. German's nice, but I don't know. I just don't feel like I can express myself 100% in it.
So, what was the first language that you spoke
German.
in Austria? Austrian German.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really strange because considering that I was, like as a little boy, I spoke perfect German. And then we moved to Germany when I was 3. I went to like a Catholic kindergarten, preschool kind of thing, which is also really strange because I was the only colored boy there. And yeah, those were where my first racist experiences came from, but that's a different story. Then after that, we moved to Dubai,
Yes.
where my dad got a job working for their sheikh for his, it was kind of like, he was like a veterinarian back then. So he worked there. That's actually where I started to learn English.
Yeah.
So up until that day, I spoke German like any other young German child. And then from Dubai, I started learning English. I learned English for about 2 years, or maybe 3 years there.
How old were you back then?
I must have been between 4, 5, and 6 I was there.
Okay.
And then we moved to Canada, where I was then in 3rd grade until the end of 7th grade, and that's where I actually learned English like 100% and got it together. And that's also where I actually forgot to speak German. Although I did go to German school every Saturday, maybe for like 2 or 3 hours. I really didn't like it. But yeah, then after that in 7th grade, my dad said, hey, instead of going to high school there, why don't we all go back to Germany? And here we are.
Cool. Yeah, I think generally when you're learning a second language, the first language kind of stays undeveloped.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed this when I started learning Dutch. My English just stayed the same basically, whereas my English level beforehand seemed to be better than after learning Dutch.
Mm-hmm.
Because somehow I think your brain just locks into that new language that you're trying to get in your mind.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Also, the fact that you don't practice that other language as much also causes it. Because I mean, sure, I spoke German to my parents in Canada, but the amount of English that I spoke on top of that completely canceled it out. Sometimes I hear myself talking and I hear the mistake that I'm making, but I don't know how to fix it.
Yeah.
Just because it's something that you learn in maybe like elementary school, and if you don't learn it then, when are you going to learn it?
True.
But I've been getting by. When you hear me speak German, you basically think that I'm German until 5 sentences later I say like, how do you say this word in German? And then they're like, oh, you're definitely not a mother tongue German speaker. And I'm like, you got me.
Well, officially you are.
Officially I am,
Yes.
but also if someone asked me what's your mother tongue, I would say English, definitely.
Yeah.
So it's it's a bit strange, but it's just how it is.
Yeah, it's funny. I have the same basically. I went to like last year. Oh no, this year. Yeah, I think January, February. I went to German school to,
Brush up on your German, huh?
exactly.
How'd that go?
But I was born in Germany and lived the first 7 years here anyways. But it was good, but I was the only German at German school.
Mm.
People kind of looked at me like, hey, this dude must be a bit stupido.
I mean, someone's just trying to get their German on point. I mean,
Yeah. But it is weird, if you would go to another country to learn a language and then you would see a native from there learning the language, and you're
Yeah.
like, wait a minute.
And you're like, shouldn't you be really good at German? And then
Yeah.
they're like, not really.
Exactly. In which language do you communicate to your parents?
Nowadays, it's a mix between German and English.
Okay.
And they sometimes speak to me in Kashmiri, which is like the language that they speak in Kashmir.
Yeah.
Although it's kind of dying out, I have to say, because the majority of the kids there, when you turn your TV on, you hear everything in Hindi or Urdu, which are essentially the same language, but one is spoken more in India and the other one's spoken more in Pakistan,
Yeah.
with really subtle differences, maybe just like how I think Hindi is written in a different script, and Urdu is written in the Arabic script.
Yeah.
That's like maybe the main difference, but otherwise you can understand each other quite well.
Okay.
And that's kind of why the people in Kashmir don't really speak it as much.
Well, that's a shame.
Yeah.
But I think it's probably won't go away, you know.
It's very unlikely, but
So, do you have any info about like how big Kashmir is and how many people?
honestly, no.
Okay.
I'm really bad at remembering statistics.
Yes.
So that's one of the questions that you would want to ask Google.
Cool.
But there's quite a lot of people there.
Yeah. Well, cool. I guess that's another topic for the comments. So basically, we laid out this rule that we are not allowed to take our phones to search something up or use the internet to search anything up, to check our facts, just for the sake of the conversation and the good times.
I agree. I love it. Keeps us off our phones and really shows what we know. Because I'm going to be honest, my memory isn't the best when it comes to statistics and who did what when. I usually don't know. I mean, I know it. When I hear it, I know it. But when I have to actually say it to you, I can only roughly guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a terrible memory as well. But, you know, that's the thing. I think one of the things we've got so used to using the internet that you don't have to remember stuff because you know you can just search it up.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I also read a quote the other day. I'm not sure where it was, but it was someone in the 60s or 70s talking about how computers and technology is becoming an extension of ourselves. So we're not limited to just our physical body, but we know that, I've got 6 hard drives full of information. So I don't need to remember it anymore because when I do need it, I'm just going to go click, click, cloop, and there it is. Interesting what it does to the brain.
Yes.
Instead of actually memorizing things, you just know where they are.
Yeah.
Where to find them.
Access to information, basically.
Exactly. I think that's super interesting.
It is. I actually listened to a very interesting podcast about this. Joe Rogan and Elon Musk. And I think Elon put it this way, that we are already kind of like living as, with a cyber extension. Because if you put 2 people in the same room and you would ask them like questions, one with the phone and one without the phone, of course the one with the phone will give you more answers and seem smarter.
Of course.
Overall. The only problem is with that the 2 thumbs or like fingers aren't the most efficient way of an interface to access the information. And that's kind of why he's working on Neuralink.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
to just, integrate it in a different way. So
Yeah.
it's an interface problem.
yeah. Solves it completely. All you gotta do is think about it, search it in your little neural network of a hard drive, and there it is.
Yep.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I see that coming.
Yes, definitely.
Just make it all easier for us.
Yeah.
Who needs a phone anymore? I have it built into my eye.
Yeah. I think that's the future though. Because if you look at it in a way, like PayPal is also one of Elon's creations, and how much it's used, especially now.
Yeah,
You know, online payments,
I agree.
Christmas gifts,
I
quarantine.
agree.
um, I think the future is gonna be a thing for sure.
Definitely.
So I want to go a bit to the club vibes because that's how we chill the most before the Corona thing happened. So the last time we saw each other was probably when you gave me the gift, right? As
Mm-hmm.
in the
That
picture.
was the 25th of February, 2020.
I'm just gonna grab it right here. So in front of me, I have a picture of Max Telar, also a DJ known from Berlin House Music,
Great guy.
and Quadraki. Am I saying it right?
Interestingly enough, I used to always think their name was Quadrakey.
Quadraki. It makes more sense.
I mean, that's how I used to read it, but I don't think I've ever heard anyone say it before, so I'm not sure how you're supposed to say it.
Okay. It is quadra and key,
Right?
so it's quadra key. The thing is, I realized this later. So I read the word as quadraki,
Quadraki.
quadraki.
Sounds so foreign.
Yes.
The way you say it. Quadraki.
Quadraki. Yeah, it's Tanya and Kero from Two Man Records, and myself also in the picture. After we did a little live set as Groovebox Masters at Craig Belmer.
Yeah, shout out Crack Belmer.
Shout out Craig Belmer. So yeah, the 25th of February, 2020.
Mm-hmm. It's the last time we saw each other. A good 10 months ago. Oh my god.
Yes. So, what have you been up to since then?
A lot, but also it seems like not so much. I mean, I'm still at university, so I've been having a lot to do with that.
Yes.
But of course, I realized at a very early stage a couple of years ago that if I only focus on university, that my brain is just not going to function the way it should. So I've dedicated a time slot of every day about an hour or two to do something else and, you know, be creative. And in those 2 hours, I usually do music, and that's the main thing that's been keeping me going. Nowadays, because I also couldn't be meeting up with friends and doing anything social, I realized pretty early on, maybe like in March, mid-March, end of March, that I should really do something with my time rather than just, you know, binge out Netflix shows that I've always wanted to watch, or, I don't know, go back to playing video games. Not that I don't love playing video games, but it's something that I just stopped doing a couple years ago. So I realized that maybe the best option is to actually be productive. And that's exactly what I've been doing. I've really been getting deep into music history.
Okay.
Because I'm not sure when it was. I think 2 years ago, I was playing somewhere. I think it was at Humboldthain. I played, and someone came up to me at the end and was like, "Hey man, I love your garage style. Like, that's so cool that you play that." And I looked at the guy, and back then, the younger version of me had no idea what he was talking about. When I hear garage, I think about UK garage.
Yes.
And I looked at the guy and I said, "That's not me, man. I think you're talking about something else. Like, I don't play that stuff. Not in a mean way. I mean, I like UK garage, but my knowledge of UK garage back then was just two-step."
Yeah.
And I looked at the guy and I thought, man, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But he was probably twice my age, so I was like, maybe I should listen to him. And I said, hey, no problem, thanks a lot. I'm going to research about this, which I sadly enough didn't do. And then I thought about that in March, and I said, hey, maybe I should really think about this garage thing. So obviously, one thing led to another, and next thing you know, I was just reading everything I could about club culture from the 70s.
Yes.
And, I mean, I've always been like an avid listener of soul, jazz, funk, a lot of Latin music as well, soundtrack music. a lot of stuff from the East, Japanese city pop, Japanese jazz as well. Recently I've been getting into like Hawaiian music and Pacific stuff. And that had me thinking like everything connects somehow. And until I figured out how, I wouldn't be satisfied. So yeah, you could say the last 10 months have been a big musical journey. Just reconnecting with old things that I never really followed up into. And I have to say, I'm really, really glad that I did.
Yes.
Because now I hear something and I think, whoa, if this was from Chicago, then I look at the label and I look at the year and I think, gosh, this must have been 20 years after that Demolition Day. Have you ever heard of that? Yeah. Disco Demolition Day?
For sure.
And I think about it and I'm like, how did this influence that? Did this guy maybe know this guy? And I started having this huge thought process about what could have led to what.
Yes.
And even though I'm probably never going to know for sure a lot of the questions that I have in my mind, it's still nice to just be able to reflect and have knowledge there.
Yeah. That's the background, isn't it?
Yeah, great background music.
Well, this is Berlin.
Yep, it's never quiet.
Yep. But, so about Disco Demolition Day, I think that's a very interesting one, generally.
Mm-hmm.
Because disco sucks.
Yeah, the whole disco sucks movement?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's...
which year was it? Do you have any?
If I'm not mistaken, it was 1979.
Okay.
Because I've been reading a lot of... I don't know if you ever read music books, but I've always loved reading. I mainly used to read, like, Goosebumps and, what was this? Like the Harry Potter series and, all these kind of fictional things.
Yeah.
Love them anyways. But I realized that reading is my number one key to education. I mean, I do it all the time for university anyways, and when I started university, I thought, I have so many readings to do, why would I want to read on top of that?
Sure.
So I skipped a lot of it for a couple of years. And then this year I thought, hey, maybe I should really get into it, but reading about things that actually, make me think about music and somehow relate to it. And I picked up a copy of, I think it was Peter Shapiro's, what was it, The Rise and Fall of Disco, if I'm not mistaken, where he basically documents everything that happened from, I think, 1969 to 1980 or 1979, and he explains it quite well. And that's actually where I learned about the Disco Demolition Day, because I had heard about it before, but I never really considered, like, the context of it, like, what was going on in the States around that time, how did it go from soul music and R&B to people going into disco and this more danceable stuff and then saying, you know what, disco sucks. If I'm not mistaken, I think on Disco Demolition Day, I mean, the guy advertised it to say, you bring your disco records and we'll blow them up because we hate disco. Because, I mean, you have to think about it like, in my mind, disco started probably like in the early mid-70s, and then after 3, 4, 5 years of disco everywhere, disco on the radio, disco this, disco shoes, disco on the TV, just non-stop disco. Like, it makes sense why people got sick of it. I think there was even I think Sesame Street also had like a disco version. There was like a Disco Duck, there was like a Disco Duck record that came out, and someone was like, this is absolutely the end of disco, because at that point disco became kind of like a word that you just didn't want to hear anymore.
Yeah.
So when it came to Disco Demolition Day, the guy was like, you know what, you guys bring your disco records, we'll blow them up because we hate disco. This guy was a radio DJ who I think he only played rock music, if I'm not mistaken. So obviously, it turned into quite a thing, but obviously it wasn't just about disco. It was also about homosexuality, and it was also about racism, because you would think about disco music as something that, like gay and queer people used to listen to, and everyone who wasn't really into that would say, no, death to disco.
Yes.
So that day, they didn't actually just bring disco records, they brought black records.
Yes.
And if I'm not mistaken, there was someone who worked at the stadium that time, a famous house producer. I need to think who it was. Gosh, no, I really don't know. Someone famous was working there that day, and he saw how people brought just black jazz records, anything that was black music record, related. And it was actually, quite a racist movement. It wasn't really even about disco. It was so much more.
No.
And yeah, I think the day after that, there was a radio station in Chicago that played Donna Summer's Last Dance. You know that song?
Yes.
Good one. They played that on the radio for 12 hours straight. Or maybe it was 24 hours. I think it was 24 hours. They played the same song through and through and through. And when he played it for the final time, 24 hours later, he said, "And this, my people, is the end of disco." And switched from one day to the next, switched back to top 40s rock format.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that is insane.
It's pretty crazy if you think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, obviously, I think the DJ didn't really intend, you know, I think to be racist in this way. Well, we never know, but I think sometimes you don't know the consequences or how big it's gonna become, and that's gonna become Disco Demolition Day remembered in music history.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've also I think I've seen some interviews, and like a lot of DJs said that time that it was definitely about race. It wasn't about just disco.
Yeah, of course.
But that is sad. But it is. I'm really happy, to see that disco is all back.
Yeah, disco is still bumping and alive.
Yes.
Still being played, still being danced to.
And I think now, even more than before, because of Corona.
Mm-hmm.
Because people are more into the house parties, the clubs are closed, so everybody's looking for some disco, basically. Because I don't, like the speakers usually at a house party don't really sound as well.
Yeah,
like
they don't really transmit
techno.
bass, really, yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, you can listen to techno, and I'm sure, and it'll just sound like pss, 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 pss.
Exactly.
I mean, it doesn't satisfy me for sure.
Yeah.
But
that's why I think also mostly at the after parties, one point it's all disco,
Mm.
So there was, I think, an article which I didn't read. A friend told me about.
That's okay. Word to mouth.
Yeah, about the basically rebirth of disco because of the current Corona situation.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah.
If you find it, do send it to me. I'd be keen to read.
I will. I'll ask the friend for you.
The friend. Hey, this is my guy. He knows.
Oh, it's a she.
Oh, well, she knows.
So how's that tea?
Pretty good. The sugar really did it.
Right?
For sure.
Yeah. So we had kind of the lockdown in March or in April. And I think it was in April.
Yeah.
Late March, beginning of April.
Yeah.
But then at one point the clubs started opening again.
Yeah, it was like beer gardens and open air stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you play anywhere in the meantime?
I had a couple requests in April and May, but I just didn't really feel so safe about it, so I didn't really accept any. And then I think I only played... I think I played once in August at a private open air with my friends. And then I played at Funk House in September, and I also played at Crack Belma in September. And that was it. Yeah, that was it. Those were the highlights. Although in Crack Belma you weren't even allowed to dance.
Yes.
So, I mean, it was nice, they renovated the place, they had some monitors, I think, or at least the sound was a lot clearer than I remember it being. But I remember my sister almost got kicked out twice because she would get up and, have a little boogie.
Yes.
Next thing you know, the lovely man from the bar comes down and says, "Listen up, girl. You dance one more time and I'll kick you out. I'll send you home." I look at the guy, I'm like, "No, please, don't kick her out. That's my sister." And he was like, "Yeah, well, she can't dance here. You're not allowed to dance." He was really strict.
Yeah.
I think that was like there was like a tanzverbot, which I guess in English is kind of like a, how do you say verbot? Like a dancing restriction.
Yes.
So basically, any bars or clubs that were open could only be open if people were not dancing.
Which is crazy.
I mean, a Tanzverbot in Berlin, that is pretty insane. I mean, I think I even read somewhere in the news that the last time that there was such a restriction on dancing was like 100 years ago,
Yeah.
in the 20s or 30s or something like that.
But if a place opens, I think you should be able to dance if you keep distance, because gyms were open too.
That didn't make
People
sense
were
to me at
working
all.
out,
I mean,
you know.
people are sharing exercise machines.
Yes.
Like, unless there's
And
30
sweating
people in
everywhere.
there, like, disinfecting every machine after use, I don't know how that's safe.
Yeah, it's not. But yeah, I don't know. The thing is, I think generally with all the regulations is more, um, the government needs to take some kind of action, regardless if it's approved or let's say if it actually works. But they want to show the people that they know what they're doing, and people need to follow,
Of
because
course.
people are afraid, people want to have information, and people just want to do something about it. So I think that's why governments then just make decisions with the best information that they can get at that time, and then just, tell people to wear masks, but not necessarily masks, just, cover
Yeah.
your nose and mouth,
Keep distance.
keep distance. But yeah, it is a crazy situation. Generally, we've never, well, in our lifetime, we've never dealt with it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So, what do you think about how 21 is gonna look?
Well, I mean, in an ideal world, there will be a lot of reflection in the next month, or at least there should have been a lot of reflection, from the start of quarantine till now. And I would hope that next year, a lot of changes are going to be implemented. But we're never going to know. I mean, there's been a lot of stuff going on this year, not just with quarantine, but also with dealing with racism, dealing with like sexual assault. I don't know if you've been paying attention with like Derek May and who was the other guy? Eric Morello from Strictly Rhythm.
No,
Do you see that?
No.
Where he was called out on for having sexually assaulted multiple women, I think, or at least they came out and called him out on it. And then I'm not 100% sure how he died, but someone told me that he committed suicide.
And this is all 2020.
Yeah,
Damn.
not too long ago.
I did not get any of that.
Yeah, I mean, I only figured out because I follow a lot of people from New York, and also like I follow also like a lot of Facebook groups where people are like sharing music and stuff like that. And then, every now and then someone will post a track of one of Derek May's old things. And the next thing you know, I look at the comments and people are freaking out. They're like, how dare you like share this guy's music after knowing that he's like sexually like exploiting people and like abusing them. And then I really, went into it and thought, okay, I'm going to see what's happening. I think RA put an article out about it. And I also read like what the people were saying, and I was like, dang, like, yeah, dang.
That is intense.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we'd
I
expect
mean-
the underground to be, a bit more relaxed.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. But I mean, I think there's a lot of ugly things in the industry that we're just not aware of.
definitely.
And with time, it'll probably come to light anyways. I hope. For the greater good.
True.
I mean, when you look at it like where nightlife culture started, it was supposed to be a safe spot. And if it's not a safe spot, it has absolutely no meaning. It's just a bunch of people, on some substance listening to loud music.
Yes.
It's just not the same thing.
No. I think that's very important for it
Yeah.
to be a safe spot. That's basically my reason for going to the club generally. I found that, like back in the day in Holland, in the Netherlands, where I started, it's just a place where you go and there's like house music playing or deep house, and then it's just you feel safe. I feel surrounded by the music, even if the club is empty.
Mm.
It's just a very joyful environment to be in, and you don't have to go crazy. You don't have to drink anything. You can just chill.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what was for me very important, because I knew it doesn't matter which kind of place would be, as long as music is played there, those kind of people will be there, and generally it will be like, feels like home, safe environment outside of your home.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. One thing I would be interested to see if someone could pull off starting a membership only club. You know the way that the Paradise Garage had it in the late 70s, that if you weren't a member you wouldn't be able to get in?
Yes.
That'd be interesting.
That would be actually great with COVID regulations at the moment.
Not only that, but also just keeping the atmosphere on deck. Knowing that everyone in the room somehow knows each other in one way or another, and no one's going to be doing silly, disrespectful things.
Yes, but I think the thing is with this, I think, so the people who are just getting introduced to the safe place can never find out the safe place. You need to go through it
exactly.
by knowing people.
Exactly.
So it's not going to be inclusive anymore. It's going to be...
It's actually, not inclusive at
by
all.
definition,
It's
exclusive.
like super exclusive.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think it is for sure, I think, a nice idea. I think there are probably clubs like this.
Probably.
Because I remember in Amsterdam there was the Tower, Madame.
Yeah, of course.
They had a members club, I think, in one of the floors, where you had to be a member to be there.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I was there once for ADE last year. Oh, that was a mess. Cool place, though.
Yeah, but ADE generally...
Yeah, ADE is generally a mess.
So many people. And Amsterdam isn't the biggest. It's already crowded.
Yeah, and then next thing you know, you have people coming from the whole world.
Yes.
Yeah, it gets a little hectic.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember back in the day.
Once upon a time.
Yeah, I think I went to 2 or 3 ADEs. And by the third one, it was so packed. I couldn't move, I couldn't dance. Energy was...
Yeah, it's a little tricky, huh?
bad. So I left, and I was angry basically at the DJs, let's say the headliners, the organization.
Yeah.
Because you're organizing events for people to have a good time. Of course, to enjoy the music, to be able to dance. That's number one.
Yeah.
You're a nightclub. But to let so many people in that you can't even...
You can't do anything. You just feel like a sardine in a tin.
Yes.
Just, everyone's huddled together. You can barely hear the music. There's just people screaming around you.
So yeah, I think 30 minutes in and left.
Damn.
The tickets aren't, too cheap either.
No, of course not. Everything goes up that week.
Yeah. So then I decided, it's like, okay, when I'm gonna do events, I'm gonna promise myself to always let space for the dancer. That's the most important thing. People should be allowed to dance. Should be able to dance.
I mean, that's the whole point.
Yes.
I mean, I've gone to too many parties where, sure, the music's great and the energy can be fine too, but if there's no room for me to really let loose, what's the point?
Yeah.
I mean, you want me to sit down? I'll happily sit down in that case. Because, you're literally just standing.
Yes.
And I don't come to clubs to just stand. I'm there to dance. I'm there to sweat. So, yeah. I think about that a lot. And I've also been thinking about phones a lot. Like, phones in nightclubs.
What do you mean?
Like, I've been to way too many parties where I look around on the dance floor and maybe like 25-30% of the population is there with like a screen lit onto their face.
Yes.
So they're either texting or, I don't know, scrolling on something or trying to send people videos of what they're doing. But they're actually not in the moment. I don't think they could give less of a shit about where they were. And that's always kind of bugged me. Because at that point, it's like, if you really just wanted to come to the club to take a picture, why don't you just go somewhere else? You know?
Yes.
It's always been something that I've been like really like about.
Well, I kind of do look at it from like two perspectives, as in, from the one hand, it is, if it is your safe space and your home, you're kind of allowed to do whatever the fuck you want. Right?
I guess I kind of see that.
So you're just kind of chilling, moving, grooving to the music, and you're sending like maybe your friend a text like, "Hey, this is really nice," or you maybe even finishing something up from work, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you want to be in the club to listen
Yeah.
to that DJ. But from the other hand, for the best experience, of course, to be fully immersed in music and not to have any kind of distraction from your phone. And I think you see that in the type of person, you know, the type of person that's really just creating moments to share a story on Instagram or, just capture
Yeah.
not an actual moment, but a
Just
fake
the
moment.
illusion of it.
Exactly, because then back, like after they finish filming that 15 seconds, they're on
Yeah.
their phone and they stay there.
Yeah.
And you have the other people who would actually enjoy it the whole time, and then to capture maybe a moment of it,
Hmm.
you pull out to make a picture and then put it back.
Yeah.
You can share it later.
True. That is true.
But I get annoyed too. But that's why I like I think the Berlin vibe of clubbing with no pictures, with flash. And
Yeah, I think it's pretty essential.
Yeah.
I mean, flash in the club anyways, it's quite a mood killer.
Yes.
I mean, not also just, looking at it from the perspective of whoever's playing and, they're playing their stuff and they look up and they just keep getting flashed at. I mean, that's gotta be horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I've experienced it and I don't ever like that. I think on multiple occasions I've actually gone up to people and been like, listen up, you do that one more time and I'm gonna make sure you go home. And these poor girls were like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, it's okay, honey, but there's a really big sticker right there that says, no phones, no photos.
Yes.
Could you not just please look at it?
Yeah.
Funny enough, like I think their picture probably had a no photo image in the photo.
Well, but that's the thing. People like to make those kind of pictures.
Just love being rebels, right?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Like lighting up a cigarette in front of the no smoking.
Yeah. Well, that's not much of a thing here in clubs, eh? In Holland, I remember I've had multiple experiences of I swear to God, 100% accidental, just, thinking that I'm in Berlin, lighting up a little thing, and then almost being dragged out. And I look at the guy, and I'm like, but sir, why? I'm just chilling, and the guy's like looking through my pockets and everything, and he's like, why? And I'm like, why what? And he's like, no smoke. And I'm like, right, you guys have designated smoking corners. I always try, I always plead with him.
Yes.
I'm sorry, sir, I'm from Berlin, I have to smoke here. I can't smoke back there because I don't hear the music. And then the guy just tells me, nope, then don't smoke.
Yes. Yeah, they're pretty much on point on it there, but it's I don't like that kind of authority. It's very different when it comes to partying vibe, because you have the authority there. Like the security is very visible in the club.
Yeah.
And they're gonna fuck you up if you.
They're not even trying to hide. They will
No.
stare you down and be like, what
Yes.
are you doing there?
behave.
You doing something suspicious? Because I don't like it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I wasn't that into it.
Yeah, and the same thing goes for the streets. When I used to live there, it's like a lot of police on horses.
Mm.
So it's the vibe of the cities in the night, like in the club areas. It's very intense, you know.
Mm.
There's a lot of aggression in there, and there's a lot of like power. Let's say police showing power basically,
Yeah.
and people rebelling against it. What I like about Berlin is you don't actually see, you don't recognize the people, like the security people,
Mm.
and it's more of a, okay, the bar people, the bar staff, you know, they look out for everyone. If
Yeah.
something happens, they just call the dude and he kicks you out.
Yeah.
And if you go out, there's also not much police going on, but the
Mm.
people from the club will tell you to be quiet for the neighborhood.
Yeah, of course.
And I think then it's kind of, you don't have anything to rebel against,
Mm.
so you don't really need or feel the need to break stuff or get into a fight or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Plus, it used to be, 24/7 open
Mm.
for any kind of need, whatever you're into,
Yeah.
which it isn't anymore.
Yeah, that's true. It's funny what you mentioned about leaving the club and, seeing police. I remember I was in Nuremberg last summer, sometime in August, and I remember the friends that I was with, they were telling me that if I had something with me, I should really try to hide it. And I looked at her and I said, what do you mean? Like, we're going to a club, like, well, what am I supposed to hide? She's like, if you have things, like, don't put them in your pockets, put them in your socks. And I looked at her like, what do you mean? Are they going to, like, airport screen me or what? And she was like, basically, this is Bayern. Well, Bavaria, in English, you would say.
Wow.
They were a little intense. And I mean, she wasn't wrong. Like, they really checked every single nook and cranny of my pants, my sweater, every pocket in my fanny pack.
So they checked you
They took me apart
just for checking
just on the way in.
on the way in.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
They took me apart. And I looked
Yeah,
at the
but-
guy and I said,
Yes, but you have that problem more often.
I have that problem everywhere, but I mean that's a whole different story. We already know that. But no. But what I wanted to actually refer to was when we left the club at, I don't know, 7 or 8 in the morning. I remember the friend telling me again, like, "Yo, we need to be careful." And I looked at her like, "Why? Like, we're just going home. Like, we're just gonna walk down the street, like 4 blocks and we're home." And she said, "No. You don't understand. This is Bavaria. People are different here." And I said, "You're so funny. Like, come on. Like, it's okay."
Club culture.
I'm like, "It's okay. Like, come on. We're chill. Like, we're not even doing anything, you know?" Next thing you know, we literally, we see a car start up. It's like 4 or 5 people in the car. They drive. They turn one corner, the first corner on the street. They take a left, and they get pulled over. I'm not even lying. They must have driven about 200 meters, and they got pulled over. Next thing you know, there's 4 cops checking every single one of them. Obviously, the driver had a bit of alcohol in his blood. They took his license away. They double-checked every single pocket on them. I think they even found something on one of them, because he got right into the cop car. And I looked at that, and then I started freaking out a bit, and I said, "Oh my, this is..." Oh, rupee. I looked at it. I looked at it, and I was like, "My, like, how do you guys enjoy nightlife here if this is what happens the second you get out?"
Yeah.
And she said, "Yeah, this is why a lot of us don't actually party here. We actually go somewhere else."
So they just took you to the tourist part.
No, I mean, it was probably the best nightclub there was in Nuremberg,
Okay.
to be honest. I think it was called Die Rakete.
Die Rakete.
Yeah, it had 3 floors, and it was connected to another club in the back, but I didn't actually go there because I don't remember. I think it was something very tech housey playing, and that's not really my taste. So I just stayed on like this kind of, not really techno, but not really house either, like kind of somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
It's like dark floor. I was quite into it. Nice selection too. Yeah, that was interesting. Nightlife in Bavaria.
Yes. We have a cat in the room.
A visitor. Wow, look at him. So good at balancing.
He is. Sometimes. Sometimes he forgets that he's too big.
Does he want some love? Or is he just exploring?
I think he wants the chair.
Oh, that's okay. You can share.
Yeah, he sometimes, well, a lot of times sleeps in this chair. Yeah. So that car that got pulled over,
Yeah.
got checked. I think for sure it's like normal, and I think it's also
It's
a good thing
totally
to check,
normal.
to check people for alcohol, especially the people who are driving.
Mm-hmm.
But for the people who aren't driving, are they even allowed to check?
I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but from Bavarian law, I assume that it's probably no problem. Because they took everyone apart.
Yeah.
If it was just like, oh, we're just checking the driver, like, I would have been like, okay, whatever, but I'm pretty sure they checked all of them. Because it wasn't just your average 2-cop situation, there was 4 of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. And I saw another incident, like, when, like, 10 minutes later, we walked down the road and we saw another person get pulled over.
Yes.
And we were like, whoa. And she's like, I told you, Bavaria. And I was like, oh gosh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I'm ever going to go there again. Nothing against the club, but that kind of atmosphere is not for me.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's intense. It's too
It's
much.
way too
it's
intense.
like you're doing something wrong or about to do something wrong, whereas you're just going to the club to listen to some music, to let go of the daily life, you know?
Yeah.
And you just chill.
Yeah.
But once this power showman, like showing of power, is present, then there is like fear and like a little rebel
Yeah.
kind of feeling that grows.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's, yeah. I love it when it's just like super chilled. That's what I like, for example, about like Humble Time. Like the door you can't really see, so there is no atmosphere around there at all. It's just like another street.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you walk in, there you are inside.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, it's not a street filled with this tension, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You have this tension more at like around the area Warschauer Straße.
Yeah, Warsaw everywhere.
Yeah.
Also understandable, though. There's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, if they didn't police it, I don't know what kind of stuff would happen there.
True.
So,
Yeah. I'm gonna have to break it up just real quick.
all good. There we are.
We're back. So we're just getting into a little bit of a chat about sound systems.
Yeah, Yusuf, why don't you tell everyone what you used to do? I think it's interesting, you know? It's something that I didn't know.
So, when I started DJing basically in high school, I used to be a drive-in DJ, as in I have like my own turntables, speakers, lights, smoke machine. So yeah, I would just drive there with my car, unload the car, put all the stuff together, and then start playing for the whole night. So from the beginning of the party till literally the end of the party, then packing all the stuff back in the car, drive home, unpack the stuff into my room, and then sleep. And it was all love for music.
Obviously, as it should be.
And that wasn't like, it wasn't paid. I think I got, so that was like my graduation year of high school. We did 7 parties back in the day with a friend of mine, and for one gig I got a bottle of champagne and 50 euros.
Ooh. Was that your first paid gig then?
That was, yeah, I think so.
The more you know.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Yeah, and to that story, that's why I asked if you knew about Jamaican sound system culture, because that's quite a thing that they used to do in Jamaica.
Yeah, I have no info about that
Do you
actually.
listen to reggae?
Yes, no, not regularly, but I like it generally
Okay,
because it's very chill.
okay. I'm definitely gonna send you some articles on that because, yeah, sound system culture is quite a thing. Like, it really played a big role on a lot of things. Like, why do you think they call dub plates dub plates? You know, like when you make a single record just to play once, or
Yes.
maybe twice or something.
Yeah.
That came from Jamaica, as far as I know.
Yeah, I think I remember vaguely like big trucks with tons of speakers on them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I thought of when you said that you were a mobile DJ driving around with your thing, you know? And then I was like, wait, no, he was just running around with the speakers, putting them up and being like, all right, here's the party.
Yes.
Because, yeah, I did a lot of reading on that, about Jamaica and reggae and dub and everything that happened there.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, yeah, like they would basically just, you know, like you'd have sound system crews where they basically had their own sound system and they would drive up somewhere, unpack, you know, have their speakers set up, have their booth set up, get their records out, and just play a party right there and then.
Yeah.
And then when they were done, they would just drive home. So I thought it was super interesting what you just said there.
True. Yeah. Yeah. Well, so the equipment wasn't built into the car, obviously.
What did you use as a DJ booth? Like, where did you put your turntables?
So that's the thing. Do I still have it? I don't know if I still have it actually. I used to have this table that was actually made for DJs. So you basically put it together, and you put like two planks of wood, like on top and down. So you have two shelves basically. So one the size of, let's say, a desk, and on the outer sides of it, it has extensions upwards, so you can hang above your head like kind of a light. So I bought this like light beam. I think, yeah. So it basically covered the whole front of the desk. So I think it was around like 150 centimeters, 150. And two lasers from each side, and under it there was like a smoke machine, and on the sides I had like the speakers on standards.
Did you ever have any kind of troublesome experience with that? Maybe someone like pushing your desk or knocking your turntables, or, you know, did your speakers ever blow up?
Yes, my speakers did blow up on the last school day.
Was it your fault?
I don't know. Well, I just put them very loud. But they were budget speakers. I still have them. They still survive. But so the tweakers died. So
Oh.
basically, it was delivering the highs, and the mids died. So you had a lot of bass.
Just a lot of bass. Just turns it
And
into a
people kept
subwoofer.
coming up to me. It's like, hey, can you put it louder? I'm trying to put it louder, but the tweakers are dead.
Did you ever fix those on your own, or did you have them fixed by someone?
So, actually, the younger brother of my high school friend, he was very handy. So we used to build stuff, and he was very interested in generally machines.
Yeah.
So he would get like mini scooters or like mini bikes, you know, to fix them up, to like buy them, which are broken, and then fix them up
Yeah.
and then sell them. So we would go on a Saturday, like do a drive to somewhere in the Netherlands, which was like 2 hours out. You know, the Netherlands is not a big country,
Yeah.
so 2 hours is pretty far. If you could get through the whole country, like 4 hours.
Get through the country.
Yeah, so we just used to pick up stuff like on eBay, basically, Marktplaats.
Marktplatz, classic.
Yeah, Um, yeah, just pick stuff up and then fix it. So he basically took it on. It's like, yo, dude, your tweakers are dead. I'm gonna fix them for you. So he contacted the company because we picked them up together.
Mm.
At a company called Buck's Shop. They sell music instruments in Holland, in the Netherlands. Buck's Shop. And it's funny because when we went there back in the day, it was a super tiny store. They had like a huge website because I ordered most of the stuff. But when we physically went there to pick up the speakers, it was super small store, overpacked with instruments and synthesizers and guitars and drums. And I think 3 years later, I went to one of their 3 new locations, which were huge.
No way.
Like the size of MediaMarkt, basically.
So they expanded quick.
They expanded super quick.
Neat. Did you ever get any synths there?
Any what?
Synthesizers? Or any other instruments?
I basically got all my basic equipment at the beginning there. So my speakers, I got there. My sound card as well. And all this stuff for the drive
gear,
division. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, no, they're as big as I think Just Music.
Yeah.
So Just Music is also a music store. It's a music. Is it a music store?
Yeah, I mean, they sell music instruments, like, ranging from everything.
Yeah.
I mean, they have, like, 4 or 5 floors? I think they've got, like, a synth floor. They've got a bunch of modulars in there, too. They could even let you... I think I remember I went there once, and because as a child I used to play the trumpet in elementary school. It was actually where... I mean, Canada, one thing that I really loved about it, on top of the people being really nice, and there being snow in winter, was the fact that in 3rd grade they force you to play an instrument. And in 3rd grade, the first instrument for everyone was a recorder, which is kind of like a... do you know what I'm talking about? These little, like... It's a wind instrument that's kind of like a flute, but made out of plastic and held, like, vertically down.
Okay.
And you basically had to, like, learn, I think, like 2 or 3 songs in that in 3rd grade, and you learn how to read music there. And then in 4th grade, they said, okay, guys, so this is what an orchestra looks like. Does everybody know what instrument is what? And everybody asked questions. What's that? Oh, and what's that? Uh-huh. Okay, and what's that? And what does he do? What does he do? And then after that, they're like, okay, so everyone's like, I'm going to get the instrument out, play it for you, kind of like demo it to the students. And if you like it, remember it, or just put your hand up, and you can learn how to play that instrument. I mean, this music teacher we had, he was a really cool guy, Mr. Meebor, shout out to him. He straight up showed us a picture of that orchestra and said, any of these instruments that you want to play, you just let me know. Because the school somehow had a decent budget on instruments, and we had a whole instrument room. So I thought, hey, trumpets look pretty cool. And learned how to play trumpet there. And later I was even in like the jazz band and the concert band.
Really?
Yeah. It was the beginning of my musical life.
Okay.
I mean, if it wasn't for that, I don't think I would have ever learned how to play an instrument. Parents weren't really that into it. I wanted them to buy me a guitar once.
Yes.
Because I was really into Guitar Hero. They weren't having it. Then I asked for a grand piano, and they said, do you know how much that costs? And I said no, and they said, too much. Yeah, that was funny. That was really funny. But yeah, coming back to Just Music, like when I went there and I saw the trumpets, and I was like, whoa. And one of the guys working there looked at me and said, would you like to try that? And I looked at him and I said, what, can I? Like, how? Like, they're so loud. Like, there's no way you can let me play an instrument here. And he said, no, look at those little cabins on the side. You can just take one, I'll give you a mouthpiece, clean it out for you. You can have that room for yourself for 20, 30 an hour, as long as you want before the next person comes. And yeah, he just let me chill in that room, play the trumpet a little bit. I was horrible at it. I couldn't get my lips functioning anymore.
Okay. Has been a while.
It's been a while, yeah. And also I played trumpet for a year, And then when we got a bit more complex with the trumpet, playing the higher notes and stuff like that, he realized that my lips weren't coping. Because
Okay.
you have to like be able to make this kind of noise,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to like be able to put it up like an octave or like a couple notes higher.
Okay.
And when he noticed that I couldn't do it, he said, "Hey, Imad, you know, you have pretty long arms for a short kid." I was maybe like a meter and a half tall.
Yeah.
And he said, "You know, why don't you try this?" And instead of giving me like something else that you play with 3 buttons, I'm not sure what those instruments are called anymore. Not a tuba, a euphonium, I think. I'm not sure. He didn't want to give me one of those. He said, "Why don't you take this trombone?" And I looked at him and I said, "But I don't know how to play it." And he said, "No, no, don't worry. It's basically a trumpet, except you don't click buttons. You just slide your arms up and down."
Yes.
And so yeah, then boom, I became a trombone player. And I
Okay.
played in the jazz band. I even played a solo. I have a video of like 30 seconds of it in pixel quality that my mom made. It's really funny because you can see how big the trombone is compared to my little body.
Yeah.
And it was really stressful to like hold it up and keep your posture well, because if you're not breathing well, you're not going to play well. It's simple
Yeah.
as that.
How old were you there?
I must have been about 7 or 8.
Okay.
And I played the trombone then until I was 11, until we moved to Germany.
Yes.
And I mean, had they had a jazz band or concert band here, I would have instantly joined it and kept that trumpet trombone playing thing up, but
Yes.
they didn't. Instead, I didn't learn music for 2 years, and then in 9th grade or 10th grade, our music class was, I don't even know if you could call it music class. We literally sat there and clapped out a rhythm. Or he gave us these two wooden sticks. I think they're claves. I'm not sure what they're called. And he was like, "So you're gonna play this rhythm." And the final test of that, like half year, was to play this kind of click, 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 click. It was so funny. And I thought about it, and I was like, "Oh my, I guess I'm just never gonna play an instrument again."
Yeah.
I was heartbroken,
Oh.
but that's just how it was.
Well, but yeah.
I mean, I think there was even a month where we were trying to learn how to play guitar. And I remember the teacher put us through something really strange. He wanted us to play... Oh gosh, I don't remember what it was. It was something very poppy that was really popular at the time. And he had somehow transcribed it into guitar. Like, I don't know, he put like 3 or 4 chords in. And he said, "For your final exam, you have to play this little guitar piece of a song that the majority of the boys hated. The girls were into it, but, I mean, that didn't really matter anyways." And then he said, "If you want to get a really good grade, you can play the guitar and sing the song at the same time."
Ooh.
Obviously, I did not do the latter. I just played the couple chords that I had and called it a day.
Yeah.
But, yeah, there wasn't much of an emphasis on music there. Maybe it just was because the school didn't have budget, but it just didn't seem like a priority at all.
Yeah.
And I mean, from what I've heard, I've had friends who went to the Heinz Backroom Gymnasium, which was like a 5-minute walk from where my old school was in Kastanienallee. And they were like a music and art school, but also like just a normal public school kind of thing. And I'm pretty sure everyone had to play at least 2 instruments and learn how to sing, or at least the basics.
Okay.
I thought that was super interesting.
Yeah.
And they were also like really into languages. Like, I mean, I had French in Canada, and that was amazing because in Canada, I mean, it's a second language, and they really teach it with passion.
Yeah.
And I remember we always used to like watch these crazy little TV show with like a talking pineapple, and that's how we learned French. And I loved it. I was like, wow, I want to do French my whole life long. You know, like way. And I'd always dreamt of going to France, and then I came here, and I was like, oh my, I guess I'm gonna have to continue French. You know, like they forced me to. They didn't give me an option. They said, well, if you've had French before, you do French here too.
Okay.
And it was the most unenjoyable thing I'd ever done. I mean, at the same time, I was also learning German, but I was on the lowest level of German, so those classes were completely fine because the teachers didn't really care much. But in French, this lady she really took the German approach to teaching. There was nothing about, we didn't watch any kind of movies, we didn't watch cartoons, we didn't listen to music. It was literally just, here's a text, do the grammatical questions, put your hand up if you know, put your hand up if you don't know, and go home.
Okay.
And that was French for 3 years, where I have to say I completely lost my motivation to learn it. Didn't see any point anymore, and just didn't do it.
I understand. I think teachers make a huge difference generally in your motivation to attend a class and how well you do with the final test. Because I have had teachers which are just genuinely nice people and want the best for you individually also, and they see how you improve, and they basically go out of their way to make sure that you get the opportunities that, let's say, your individual level is up to, but also make the class more interesting. But I think this comes down to personalities and what kind of person you are, and why you're doing it in the first place. So maybe if teaching wasn't your first choice, but it's more of a settling in kind of job, then you would still do the job correctly, but maybe there's not as much passion in it. And I'm not saying if that's not your first choice, of course, that's like, but generally I think if you have a passion for the job that you're doing, you're gonna excel at it, and that energy basically gets transferred to the
Definitely
students.
gets transferred.
And then they start to see the good things about it, even if it's not, let's say, the greatest school or the greatest city or the greatest future perspective, but you still think like, oh, okay, this is cool.
No.
I want to be here.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I mean, funny enough, this teacher who I had for French, she taught that French class for 3 years, and then when the principal said that he was leaving, she jumped at it. And next thing you know, she stopped teaching French, let someone else do it, and became school principal.
No. There you go.
Funny enough, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that lady.
Yeah, but I've had teachers, or one teacher, and she basically brought a lot of her personal struggles into the classroom. So she would not come as, let's say, a neutral or a positive force or energy into the classroom. She would come already loaded with negativity and waiting for a chance to just, blow off some steam.
Yeah.
And I think that's not a good way of motivating the students to attend the class and excel at your class, which actually would make you a better teacher, would give you a positivity back. But I think some people just get stuck in spirals.
Yeah, I see that.
And I never accepted it generally, when I feel that that people have authority over you, and they still have the responsibility if they misuse or like use their authority and power in a way that's not justifiable to me, then I'm like, hey, wait a minute, you're not fulfilling your responsibilities, so you better check yourself.
Check yourself.
Yes, and that's the thing. I think that's also a thing that not a lot of teachers are used to. So there is kind of this intimidation level. But I think if you're a teacher, you should be one with your students. So you would be open for critique and open for improvement. So yeah, I think teachers are very important generally to society and to future generations.
Yeah, they can really spark a candle in you.
Yes.
And that candle can stay burning, or it can be very dim and burn out quick.
Yes.
And then so much for that. I mean, luckily for me, I also had a really nice English teacher who really She gave us a lot to read. I mean, I'm not sure what the average is that a kid has to read in 8th grade, but I felt like we were reading a book a month, and we had to present on it and then analyze it. But she just had so much fun with it that it didn't seem like a chore anymore. You know, like, I wasn't the biggest reader, I guess you could say, in my childhood, but then when it came to like 4th, 5th grade and people giving us books to read and saying, okay, so once you've read this, I want you to focus on this exact theme or motive in the book and just think about it and answer these questions. I used to just do it because, you had to do it. But then when I really started thinking about things, I think it really came to me when I read Lord of the Flies. I don't know if you ever read that, but it's like a classic, like, North American book that people teach to, I don't know, 8th or 9th graders and then have them, like, analyze themes of it. Because it's like a story about these boys that I think they're stuck on an island and they don't have any, like, authority figures, right? Because there's no adults there. Like, I think the captain and someone else, like, they died in the crash or something, and then it's just like a bunch of children left alone on an island.
Okay.
Who somehow have to, like, organize themselves and, like, succeed in staying alive and getting resources and setting up, like, a community,
Yes.
And it just had, like, a lot of problems in it. And I think at the end of it, there was, like, some kind of, like, a shell, like a magic shell that they would, like, blow into, and, like, it meant that you're the captain, or you could, like, make calls between people or something. And I remember that something happened in the minds of these boys, that they believed that this boy, I want to say his name was Piggy, but that's probably not his name. But it was something outrageous anyways. And I'm pretty sure at the end of it, somehow they were all convinced that Piggy was evil, or that he'd been, like, cursed or something, and they wanted to kill him, I think. And I remember I had to analyze, like, one of the characters' roles, and I thought, damn, I've never really, like, sure, I listen to people and what they say, but, like, I never paid attention to the words they say, like, in exact orders, because like, when you read between the lines, like, you could really pull a lot about someone's character out of just text.
Yeah.
And just, reading about those kind of things and then really reflecting upon it, did I go, like, wow. I remember one time I even sent her an email on the weekend. And I was, like, in 8th grade. And for me at least, it wasn't really a thing that you email your teachers. Like, your teachers were people that you saw between a Monday to Friday, and then they don't exist. Summer holidays, don't exist. Suddenly, here I am thinking, damn, I need to ask my teacher something on a Sunday afternoon. And I emailed her, and surely enough, she emailed me back the same evening and answered my question about, I think I asked her, like, what metaphors are,
Yeah.
and, like, how are they used, and she sent me, like, a bunch of text explaining them, and then, that's how I understood what a metaphor was, and I was mind blown. And, like, to this day, it's still there, like, anytime that I feel like I can say something in a artsier way, like, with different words than you'd usually put them, just to, like, make you think about it a bit more, I go for it. Yeah. That's all her fault. I love her to this day. She actually found me on LinkedIn the other day and, like, added me as a, what do you call it, a connection or whatever. Yes. And I hit her back with a message straight, and I was like, hey, Miss Birmingham, like, what's going on? Like, so nice to see you here on the WWW. And she said, sorry, Imad, I'm not familiar with chatting on here. Please send me an email. And that is exactly what I did. She's a great lady.
That is wonderful.
Yeah.
I think, but this is the thing. I think good teachers stick for life.
For real.
And you keep telling on their stories, and that's like an example of another great teacher was like one of my teachers when I first came to Holland from Iraq, not really speaking the language, and he basically saw potential, and I was, funnily enough, like, doing a stream I think a month back or 2 months back, and after the stream I see a message from my teacher because we're also, like, friends on Facebook basically. He's already retired, I think, for I think like 2 years or 3, in his 70s. But yeah, just asking how I was doing and all that, so we chatted for a bit. But he basically made it so easy for me to continue studying at the school, and without me even asking for it. Like he went out of his way behind my back to make stuff happen for me.
Yeah.
And this way he got me to skip the whole class because he saw like, okay, you're doing very well in this level.
Yeah.
You're doing too well to just pass this level, so I'm gonna try for you to make some exams from the next level. So by the end of the year, you could start like skip a class. Basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all his suggestion, and it worked out. And I'm very grateful for that. And also from my transition from, let's say, Dutch school to learn the language to regular school, there was also some kind of payment issue, or it was like I would have to pay more the year after. And what he arranged basically is that we would still be registered at the old school, so we don't have to pay anything. And that for like 3 years. Just
wow,
by,
bless him.
Yes.
Dang.
Bless him.
Yeah.
Shout out for sure. And basically, he's the best teacher I've ever had, and I always, say that to him too. And my sister was at the same school, and she has the same thing, and we're all in contact.
Oh man, that's so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, teachers can really play a big role in your life.
Yes, they can. I'm talking about teachers.
About speakers.
Yes, that's the thing. So my mind was already kind of dipping into the music world.
Tell me.
So I think what would be nice maybe to try and find like a weird night, let's say, weird experience in the clubs generally.
A weird experience. Let me think.
Or just, let's say, an experience that you would like to share.
Wow, there's a lot actually. Let me think. I mean, one of the first parties that I went to where it was house music was because my friend Mark, Cable K, shout out, he told me that there was this crew and they were called Texture. And he said, these guys play really good house music, you gotta go to all their parties. And I'd gone to one of them, and I realized when I was on the dance floor that I wasn't being bombarded with kicks and snares at full velocity all night long, but there was actually groove in the music. And it kind of reconnected me and reminded me of like soul and disco. And I thought, whatever this is, this kind of techno, I like it. And then I remembered, Mark said it was called house music. And I was like, cool. I must have been maybe like 17 at the time. And I remember I'd listened to this guy's set, and I was like, whoa, did I just hear a piano solo? And I'm thinking to myself, like, gosh, I've never heard electronic music like this in a club with like instruments on it. I heard vocals in there. There was a flip of, do you know Zane, Hey Mr. DJ? It's a really classic, I want to say it's from the late 80s. It's kind of like an early house track. And he played an edit of that. I think it was by Joss Moog or Joss Mogg? I'm not sure exactly what his name was. But he played that record. And I remember I was just dancing and going like, whoa, like, I didn't know that I like vocals in music, like in dance music. Because, I mean, till then it really just been techno, a lot of industrial stuff. And my mind was just really just wowed. And I think that party was in Arena, on the Spree here in Berlin. And I remember I went home that morning, and usually it would be like after I went to a techno party, I'd be sitting in the S-Bahn, which is like the public trains here, and I'd be like listening to the sound of the train and thinking it's musical, because I had been exposed to just a kick drum and some kind of, like robot intercourse kind of noises where it really just went. with a bass drum, and I used to think that the train was music. And after that night, I remember I sat in the train and I was like, wow, what is this background noise? It's kind of stressing me out. I had so much nice, groovy stuff in my mind, like being exposed to it, and now I'm stuck with this kind of noise again. And I remember the next day after I'd slept until like the afternoon, I was like, man, I really need to find out what this guy was playing. It was like, I mean, I had always been a music fiend and always wanted to know who made what music and put it on some kind of a playlist. So, of course, I found the crew on Facebook and I wrote them and I was like, hey guys, like, I was at your party yesterday and, like, like, wow, that was amazing. Like, you guys play some really good music. I mean, in retrospect, a lot of it was, like, very, like, the beginning of lo-fi house. Close, like, deep house, lo-fi house kind of stuff. But it was really groovy. So I wrote the guy's message and was like, hey, like, please, like, can you tell me some of the songs you played? Because, like, I want to hear them again. Because how else would I find them? I did get an answer for, like, 2 or 3 days. And I thought, oh, man, maybe they're too popular. Maybe they don't answer messages of fans like that, you know? Like, maybe that was dumb of me. So I said, okay, whatever, like, I can live without those couple of songs. And then a couple days later, one of the DJs, Zulian, aka Julian, actually hit me back and said, hey man, and he compiled, I think, everything that he played in his set and sent me a list of it. Artist, title, label. And I looked at it and I said, wow, thank you so much. And I was just overwhelmed that, you know, this godly figure in my life had just blessed me with the secret code word to finding the sound. And so of course I did some heavy research and I listened to every single song and I made a playlist of the ones that I really liked, and that's kind of where my house journey started, right off that message. And yeah, then anyway, a little side story there, but point is, then one time, I think a couple months later, I went to one of their last parties in Arena again, and this time I went there with like I'd made Julian an envelope and I'd left a little treat in there for him, and I wrote a little thank you letter at the end, you know, because I was just so grateful that this guy not only plays great music, but he also shared it with me. And I didn't really know how much of an impact that would make to my life until I actually started DJing maybe a year later, or yeah, about a year later. And I remember I was looking for him and I just couldn't find him that night, so I went to the lady at the cloakroom and I was like, hey, like, do you maybe know Zulian? Because that's his DJ name, Zulian. I was like, hey, do you maybe know Zulian? Do you know where I can find him? And she looks at me, she's like, no, I mean, I know he's running the party, but I just don't know where he is, you know? And I was like, that's okay, like, could you just give him this? And my friends are looking at me like, Imad, what is that? And I'm like, it's a gift. And she looks at it and she's like, okay, because I mean, it looked a little suspicious. It looked like an envelope with something in it. And she didn't know what to say. So she looked at it and I was like, please, like, I would give it to him, but I don't know what he looks like. I don't know where to find him. I don't know what to do, you know, basically. I was a lost child. Anyways, I gave it to her and she said she'd do her best. And as I'm walking out, jacket on and everything, I hear her yelling and I turn around and I look at her and she's pointing at me. She's like, he's here, come, he's here. And I look at her and I'm like, oh my. I look at my friends, I'm like, guys, meet me outside, I'll be right back. So I run towards her and she's pointing at this chap and he looks at me and she looks at me and I look at them and I'm like, oh, you must be Zulian. He must have looked at me like, what the hell is going on? And then, yeah, he's already holding the envelope.
Yes.
Because she gave it to him. And I just like look at him and I'm just like overwhelmed. I didn't know what to say. I was like, well, I just wanted to say thank you so much. Like your music is amazing. Thanks so much for having me and making this possible. Like you really like, wow. I was just such a fangirl that day. And he was like, all good, man. Like it's just what I do. And, you know, I had a little chat and then I called it a day. And I remember like thinking about it probably every day for like a couple weeks. And I was just waiting till the next party. And I don't think there was a last party. Or I missed it. But I think at some point they closed down, and I actually contacted Julian at the end of last year because I wanted to book him for a party. Or see if he'd be willing to do that kind of thing. And then you told me texture isn't really a thing anymore. They're taking a break and this, that, and the other thing. But yeah, that was definitely one of those stories.
Yes. Well, that is a good one, for sure.
Yeah, it was definitely something that made a memory on me.
Yes. But I think this is the thing, what I think a lot of people don't really think of when they think about clubs, is that there's a lot of passion in music, and sometimes this kind of romance in the music is nice because you're basically getting this feeling, getting this vibe in music that people then share with you, and you're just enjoying that vibe, basically enjoying that music, and it's just love, you know.
It's definitely just love.
And also for him, for Julian, must be very nice to have someone who's giving him so much kindness as well, you know, because I think that's also a thing what artists or DJs like, you know, is appreciation
Definitely.
back from the people. And you know, you're a kind dude, and you have like a very nice and genuine way of communicating and leaving little treats and gifts here, but all connected in a memory, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Because how I know you also is you are a club dude, as in you're at every party, basically, you know, and you have your shades on and you're just rocking it.
Just having a dance.
Yes. And you have your camera on you, like your
Very, very important little thing.
Yes.
That Canon. Yeah, I have to say, I mean, what you said with the little souvenir, the little memories, and also thinking about what we said earlier about memory, that's why I started taking that camera with me. Because, I mean, I realized, I mean, I had a digital camera when I was maybe 8 or 9. And I remember snapping a couple pictures with it and never looking at those pictures ever again. So then later when I got my first iPhone when I was 14 or 15, I thought, gosh, I could take pictures of anything all the time. And I did exactly that. I took a bunch of pictures, never looked at them ever again. Then, maybe a year later, like, a little before I turned 16, I realized that, hey, like, what if you got a dedicated camera for taking pictures? And I thought about it for a little while, and I thought, well, on my phone here, I've got 2,000 pictures. Realistically, they're not good enough for me to ever want to look at them again. I mean, sure, there's like phases where every now and then I'll be like just browsing through my pictures, but it wasn't like there's no real passion for it, you know? So when I got my first analog camera, I remember thinking like, okay, so this is how you load film into it. You got to make sure that it's on, you're pointing it the right way, the flash is on. You had to suddenly think about what you're doing, you know? You had to be more conscious about it. And I remember thinking that one canister of film has maximum 36 exposures. So suddenly you're not, you know, it's not possible for you to take 5 pictures of the same thing to get the right picture. You had 1. I mean, sure, you could take 36 tries, but, you know, film is still pretty expensive. I think it's like $8 or $9 for 3 rolls of film. I calculated it out once and I was like, ooh, I can't just blow pictures out.
Yeah.
So, you know, I started taking this little camera with me, and like initially the plan was just to, you know, take pictures of things I wanted to remember, because I mean, I didn't really keep a diary, so there's no way for me to look back and be like, what did I do on this day, or when did that happen, or when did that happen? So it was, you know, it just kind of came naturally to me that I was, you know, very focused on details, and realized that, you know, this exact moment I want to keep forever. So yeah, I would start carrying that little analog with me, taking pictures here and there, here and there. And yeah, I mean, the more that I started doing musical things, the more pictures of musical things came on my camera. I mean, I think the very first time, let me think about this. early 2017, not too long after that I'd been exposed to the Texture Crew and this lo-fi house movement, maybe like half a year before, did I end up at Griesmühle for, I think it was a Certain Circles and Best Models party. And personally, when I used to go to Griesmühle, I always went to the techno raves. And I was almost 100% sure that day was also just an average techno rave. So, I got in line, did my thing, got in. And to my surprise, I didn't hear this loud, rooming techno as I had expected, the little factory. They always had that kind of stuff playing, but it was house. But this time not the lo-fi house that I'd been exposed to before, but more like a deeper, minimal groove of it. And I remember just being there and just, having a really great time. And then I thought, like, wow, who are these people? And of course I did the same things before. I went home the next day, I researched, I found out who was playing there, and was like, cool, I'm gonna follow these guys, they seem cool. And then I remember for one of their Griesmühle parties, where they had Brawler playing in the basement, as well as Self Daddy for the after hour, Martin was there, aka Porter, I think the Willers brothers were there as well, Liam or Sean, Sai was there too, I forgot who was at the very top there. Stephen A. Levin was there, aka Steve-O. And there was someone else. Gosh, I don't remember. But I look at that flyer every day. But I remember before going there, a week before or something, I thought the design was amazing. It was this red, orange, pinkish flyer with just dots everywhere. The Griesmühle logo and the timetable on the bottom. Or the headline, the artist names. Gosh, I forgot what the word was. And I remember I wrote the page a message and was like, oh no, I wrote Porter a message because I somehow remember that he was part of it or the boss of it or something. And I wrote him a message and I was like, hey man, I love your flyer, but like, could I maybe get a poster of it? He must have been thinking, what the fuck? But yeah, I mean, I had the courage to do it. I did it and I said, hey, if you have a poster, like, I would be more than happy to have one. I didn't think he would answer because I thought, gosh, this must be silly. Like, who's going to answer this kind of a request? But he did. And he said, hey, meet me downstairs at the booth. No, meet me upstairs at the booth at like 6 a.m. And I thought, oh, golly goo. Okay, I see what's happening. I'm definitely going to stay till 6, So I remember I'd gone there with my sister. And we were just dancing. Brawler's set was amazing. I think I even talked to him afterwards and I asked him, like, yo, like, because he was playing, I think he was only playing records, if I'm not mistaken. And I'd never really paid attention to records and stuff like that before. And I thought, hey, like, how does he do it? So I obviously spent the night watching him. And at the end, I was like, yo, like, what's your playlist? It sounds, now that I say it, it sounds quite silly to ask someone that. But somehow I thought that he had programmed everything beforehand because it was so smooth. Okay. So I asked him, like, yo, like, how'd you do that? And he was like, oh, I just take records and play them. And I looked at him so confused, and I was like, this guy must be crazy. Like, he's just digging into his little thing here and throwing a record down and playing it. And I was like, okay, whatever. And then I went upstairs, and that was the first time ever in my life that I entered a DJ booth. Where, because at Griesmühle, you'd kind of have to go into the back next to the back speaker and then get into the booth. And I just felt really guilty. I didn't want to, like, disturb Martin while he's playing. But still, I walked up in there, and he looks at me kind of confused. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. What do you expect? And I look at him, and I'm like, poster? And he looks at me, and he's like, he takes his headphones off. He's like, what? And I'm like, oh, I wrote you about a poster? And I had to, like, scream this at him. And I'm not really the kind of guy to want to scream at a guy because, the music's too loud. But he's like, oh, right. And he ducks over, goes through his things, and gives me that poster. And I'm just like, oh, wow, thank you so much. And I got on out of there. But, yeah, this is all a bit of a side story into how I got into it. But then later, when I went to my first in-store, which was the first We Are House release by the Willis brothers, Liam and Sean, I remember having ordered one, and I thought, gosh, how cool would it be if they signed it? And I thought about this for a long time, and then I figured, yeah, heck yeah, I'm just gonna do it. Let's see what happens. So I sent him a message. I'm like, hey man, can you sign my record? I'll like come to your in-store, but can you sign my record? And there too, I was like, gosh, is he gonna answer? Is he not gonna answer? We'll never know. And he did, and he laughed. He was like, haha, sure. And I was like, oh my god, cool. Like, what time do you want me to be there? Like, oh, I was so young. I was like really polite. I was like, oh, okay, I'll be there exactly at this time. And then, I like got all my friends to come with me, and I met them and I talked to them and everything, and we had a good time. And I was just laughing my butt off. I think so was he, because I'm not sure if anyone had ever asked him to sign a record before. Maybe they have, maybe they didn't. But it was a really good experience. That's also where I met Cynthia for the first time. And I remember I had heard her sets before. I think I'd even see her play before somewhere earlier that year, because I'd been following the crew around. And I talked to her and I was like, wow, like, because she, huge influence on me. Like, when she played that, like, 90s New York stuff, it really hit all my taste buds. Yeah. All the soul and jazz with a house beat, it was kind of like a texture moment, but to the power of 100. Like, every song she played, I was like, oh, wow, that vocal, those keys, that bass line, everything just hit the spot. And that was the first time I met her, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, oh, it's such an honor to meet you, like you're like a goddess in my eyes, I mean, I'd always called her Queen Cynthia, because I kind of believe that's kind of what she was to me. And yeah, just meeting her that day really was like a wow moment to realize, like, whoa, all these people are just people.
Yes.
I mean, probably growing up in North America, you think like anyone that makes music and is somewhat famous is kind of like a rock star or pop star or whatever, like the huge following, this, that, and the other thing. But then suddenly I met, just underground house people, and they're just really nice and humble. Yeah. That really wowed me, I have to say. And that was also, I think, the first in-store that I'd ever gone to. So obviously I took a bunch of pictures, had a jolly time. I look at those quite frequently. But yeah, that was also one of the very inspiring things in my story.
Yeah. Yeah, I think generally you kind of land also in kind of a circle of known people who kind of go to the same parties, and I don't know, it's like a certain vibe, then the same vibe you have at the party, the same you have at the store. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, then you become also one of the crew generally, because you are like the dancer and you understand, the whole music experience thing. Mm-hmm. So at the end, they're doing it for you, for mm-hmm. the dance floor. And I think this is just great to have like everything a bit more mixed together.
Yeah.
And it then becomes kind of a little safe haven.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, I think this is a very important thing about being more inclusive and welcoming like those kind of requests, because I think that's just positivity for everyone. And the way you mentioned before also, when they didn't reply to you in like 3 days, you're thinking it's like, maybe it was silly of me,
mm-hmm.
but it wasn't. And I think a lot of like labels and artists kind of never answer at all, and that might influence some people's experience of the music mm-hmm. industry in general. And I think it also can make the difference between someone that is very motivated and wanting to move on to the next stage, and someone then who would say like, okay, I'm only getting like no replies, I might as well just give up.
Yeah, you just accept it as not being a thing.
Exactly.
Like you're here, they're there. Two different sides of the room.
Yeah. But yeah.
I mean, I also have had experiences where, for example, with Julian, when I wrote him and I was like, hey, like all I wanted was 2 or 3 songs, but I really wanted to know what the one was with the Zane flip of Hey Mr. DJ. I really needed to know what that was because I wanted to listen to it. But of course, I didn't know how to word it, so I just said, give me a couple songs. He sent me his whole list. I thought, gosh, like, this is enough to work with. Like, this is the best thing he could have ever done for me.
Yes.
And then there's been other DJs where, during the night or day or wherever it was or whenever it was, I'll just walk up to them, be like, hey, like, could you tell me what's playing? Because this is really nice, and, I'd like to know. This guy looks at me and says, eh. And I look back and I think maybe he's misunderstood me, and I think, like, gosh, could I maybe know who the artist is? And the guy looks at me with these almost angry eyes that I was, like, kind of intruding his booth privacy there, and says, no, it's a secret. I think about this retrospectively, and I think, gosh, why are you a DJ? Mm-hmm. I mean, from my understanding, also just the way I grew up, I was always the kid that people would, like, give the aux cable to be like, hey, play something. I'll take care of it. I was a DJ before I was a DJ. Yeah. So I always thought the whole point of being a DJ or someone who's a bit more connected to music was to share it. Because music that people don't know, they won't listen to. And you can only expose someone to so much in a basis. So this guy telling me that I couldn't know what the song was called because it was a secret, I thought, darn. Like, really, I was like, I mean, sure, your music's good, but, his energy that he was admitting, I didn't want it. I don't think I ever went to see that guy play again, just because of that. I mean, sure, he could have, told me, like, hey, I'll tell you later, or, come up with some excuse that he's too busy, but his, like, angry attitude and me wanting to know, like, as if I was his competition, that hurt. That really turned me off. I was like, wow, like, ooh, people can be bitter? I thought everyone here was so cute.
Well, yeah, I have a bunch of those.
Yeah, I mean, there's, people are people. There's some like this, some like that.
Yeah. But I think some people think about some DJs think about their tracks that they play as the secret weapons.
Yeah, of course.
But I think this, like, I understand, of course, everyone has, like, their secret bangers that they're gonna play. It's not like it's just good and it's not so known yet, but since everyone's going through music, there's always new stuff, so we never play the same thing all the time. Mm-hmm. So generally it's always, like, time based.
Yeah.
And you will move on to the next secret banger and make it, like, bigger than it is, and then you move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I mean that's how I see things now too. I mean, you're just playing a track. If someone wants to know, I mean, be the nice guy and tell the guy. Because, I mean, think about it realistically. Like, also, now that I've thought more about production and the whole other side of things rather than just listening to music and whatever, I also thought, like, man, if some somewhat famous dude or not famous dude, doesn't matter, is playing my track, and somebody says, oh, I like that, I want to hear more of that, please, give me the sacred connection to this information. And the guy says, no, sorry, can't share. It's exclusive. I as a producer in that case, would be like, darn, like, you could have, helped me out.
Yes.
By, just telling the guy that it's me who made it. And, then the person takes a note of it and goes through my discography and says, I like this guy, or I only like that one song. One or the other. But, he didn't even give him the option, so.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a shame. But I think, some people get into it of, like, more of an ego thing. Mm-hmm. And, yeah.
No, I see that. I've sadly enough met way too many people that are not, let's put it this way, that they're not driven by correct motives, like their reason of being a DJ is not other people's reason of being a DJ. Like, they want to be a DJ for the free drinks and being able to party all night and maybe even get paid for it. Maybe get some likes, get people to know their name. I think that's just silly. I have to be honest. I mean, there's no passion for what you're playing. You're just playing it because people like it, or because they dance to it, or because it's in the top hundreds, or whatever silly reason it may be. But I've just never gotten it, I can filter it out really quick. It's like I have a spidey sense for it, I can just, like, tell if someone's really passionate about what they're doing, or if they're just doing it for, let's say, the benefits, you know, ego, the fame, the likes, the money, the status symbol of, ooh, I'm a DJ. Because, I mean, nowadays, who isn't a DJ?
Yes.
Considering technological improvements, like, gosh, I DJ on my phone if I wanted to.
Yep.
Just download one app, click that little sync button.
Exactly.
Don't even buy the music, just, you know, download it off some conversion app and be, oh, I'm a DJ.
For sure.
I mean, that's a whole other rant I could get into.
Well, yeah. No, but I think the thing is what I like generally about that, what you say, like you sense the reasons why people are into it. And I think like in the house scene there's a lot of also older people that are basically already settled in life, have their thing going on, and not necessarily chasing the whole artistic side of it, but really just going with the groove and just making music and sharing music and starting labels and that kind of thing. And for those people it's like a real passion, I think. Of course for the other ones can also be, but I think if you do something regardless of the circumstances, you're gonna keep doing it, then it's not motivated on success, you know. So you can see that's like, okay, I want to be the biggest DJ straight away. If that's the reason you get into music, well, you know, you're probably not gonna last. But if your reason of music is music and how it makes you feel, and you know how you're connected to it, everyone has a story. I think that's then you're just gonna keep doing it regardless if you're gonna become the biggest DJ or not.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have the feeling that people also always reflect their assumption of being a DJ is about chasing that dream of being the biggest DJ there is. You know? So yeah, I think that's a bit the nice thing about the underground, you know.
Oh, I love the underground. I don't care if you see me or not. I'm still doing my thing.
Yes. Exactly. Are there any things that you want to share still?
That's a big question, Yusuf.
Generally, that you want to throw in, that you've thought of before, that you're...
I mean, one thing that I just thought of about people being exclusive about their music was actually something that I learned. I think it was in Jamaica. I mean, I didn't learn it in Jamaica, sorry. I was studying about Jamaica and sounds of some culture and whatnot, and I remember there were actually guys who would, like, scratch the label off their records. So if they had a tune that was their signature tune, they wouldn't want anyone else on the island to know about it. So they would literally scratch the vinyl label off or paint it black or something like that. And thinking about it now, that is kind of what people do. Just they don't need to scratch a label off, they just don't need to tell you, you know? To keep it to themselves.
True. But I think, so if I look at it from the perspective of access to music, so let's say if you have limited access and you only have 100 records and that's what you do and that's your profession and you're making money with it, and in a time where there isn't really internet or like digital music playing is not a thing, then I think it would be legit to actually scratch it off.
Totally legit. Totally legit.
And not share the music, because that's basically how you make a living.
Yeah.
And the other people are your competition.
100%.
Especially if the records are so rare, then it's hard.
Yeah. No, definitely agree. I just had that same thought. And I was thinking about, like, man, if this guy just, like, scratched the record off, like, okay, I understand. You want to be conspicuous with your music and just keep it on the down low. Fine by me. just had that picture in my mind there before. Is there anything else you'd like to ask or know?
Yes. So I think a little bit about your productions. As Imad from Berlin.
Imad from Berlin.
Imad from Berlin.
Is that even true, though?
So you've released an EP, Lucid Living,
Yep.
on Heat Up Music like 2 months ago.
Yeah. Yeah, in October. Or was it September? I think it was October.
Yes.
Yeah. That was on Raphael's label.
Yeah.
Shout out to him for having me, by the way.
Shout out to Raphael.
I mean, yeah, production-wise, I have to say, I never dreamed of being a producer. I mean, sure, I like making music. I was more into, jamming. Just, meeting up with people and, playing. Everyone played their instrument, did their little thing. And then they went home, and that was their day. There was no such... I never came to the thought of, why don't we try to record something? Why don't we try to save it in some sort of way? I mean, sure, I knew what MP3s were, but I never thought about actually producing one of them. And production for me kind of just came naturally. I mean, I tried making hip-hop beats when I was really into that, because that's kind of what I grew up on, maybe when I was 10. From 10 till maybe 16, 17, hip-hop was the main thing I listened to. That's also where I got into soul and jazz and stuff like that. And so when people started making music on Fruity Loops, GarageBand, Ableton in our early teen years, I was like, oh, I want to do that too. That was pretty easy. You're just clicking a couple boxes and boom, you got music. So I had one of my friends try to teach me, good friend Ben Raymond. I remember he came over one time during a lunch, and we sat down, we were just chilling, having a good time, and he opened up his laptop and said, all right, so this is how you program a loop. And I remember looking at his screen and just seeing these little boxes, just everywhere was boxes. It felt like the Matrix. I was overwhelmed. There were just faders everywhere and all these options of things of doing. I just didn't get it, and he tried for a good 45 minutes or something while we had lunch to teach me, and I just didn't get it. And I remember I got a couple I worked a bit on Ableton maybe for a week or two, and I was just so frustrated I said, nah, I'm not going to produce music. I'm just going to listen. And then obviously after I started DJing and understanding a bit more about arrangements and patterns and song templates and palettes of sound, I thought I'd try it again. So, I've been making a couple things here and there, but because I compared them to music of a much higher degree, something I was comparing them to Kerry Chandler productions and thinking, why can't I make my drums sound like that? I was like, gosh, I must really suck. And this went on for a really long time until I one day realized that, there's no way that I'm going to be from zero to hero in a month or two. And I figured this is going to be a learning process for the rest of my life. And, so, I'll just make a couple tracks here and there, but I was just never satisfied. They just weren't spicy enough. Then I uploaded one cut where I sampled, what did I sample? I think it was Casey and the Sunshine Band. And I just took the pad out of that and just looped it and put some drums on it and put a vocal that I think I got from a movie. Put a vocal on it, and I was like, ha ha ha, this is so funny, how great. Then my friend, Cable K, aka Mark, comes up and says, oh, this is great, let me fix it up and give you a proper mix down. I had no idea what that was. He said, what kind of stuff did you put on your channels? I looked at him and I said, what stuff? I barely even managed to put the volume up and down on the faders for some of the channels, that's all I did. And he was like, no. And he got really sound sciencey on me, started explaining what frequencies were where, why you had to duck this instrument, why you had to compress this and sidechain that. I had no idea what he was talking about, but he mixed that down for me and it sounded a lot better, and I was like, wow, that's quite listenable. So that was that. That was maybe 2 years ago. And overall I didn't really produce much that I was proud of. I produced a lot, sure, but I never really was satisfied with it. And the one piece for Raphael's label for Heat Up, I started making the freak track last year with my friend Jacob. Jacob invited me once to his school, the HDPK, which is in Kleispark, which is like a music school, more or less, or like a university. And I remember we were like in one of the studios there, and we were just jamming, and I thought, hey, like, can I do some drums? Or like, oh no, actually we chose drum samples together, and then arranged it, and he played some keys and did a bass line, and I was like, whoa, I was like, you're so good. I could have never played the keys like that, even though it was really just a couple chords. And then we took the project home, and I'd worked on it, and I worked on it some more, and then I'd even like done some funny stuff with vocals and tried new techniques, and I was like, wow, cool. But I didn't do anything with it. We never either really like finished it and just kind of left it be. And then I played it at Klunkakranish when I think it was for a BBC party. We were supposed to play there together, and Raphael was late, so I thought, hey, like, before we open, like, I'm gonna play one of my tracks and see what it sounds like on a system. So I played that free track, stood in the middle of the dance floor, listened to it, started taking notes of what I thought was good and what I thought was bad. And then comes Raphael and says, whoa, what you doing? And I'm like, hey man, just, chilling. And he's like, cool, like, why are you taking notes? And I'm like, oh, just something I made and just wondering how it sounded. And he was like, whoa, yeah, that's cool. And then I think he hit me up a bit later and said, hey man, if you want to release something, just send me some demos. And I was like, whoa, like, he thought it was listenable. I was like, cool. Like, I always thought my music was average. And, yeah, that gave me a bit more of a motivation to really get into production. And I did start, like, fimbling into, like audio and, like, sound engineers and, how they work with sounds. And, yeah, starting to grasp that a bit more. I finished the second one as well, second track, and sent that to him. And, yeah, that was that. And recently, I have to say I haven't been producing as much as I want to. I've just mainly been drained in the evenings after a lot of university and just not been in the mood to want to produce music. It's just the creative flow is just gone. And then I also started listening to a lot of electro lately and techno and kind of reconnecting with that side of things, even though I was pretty sure I was over it. Apparently not. And then I started thinking like, whoa, like these electro rhythms are kind of cool. Like it very much reminded me of hip hop. I mean, if you think about it, like historically, it was kind of like a thing that came after disco, this like hip hop movement, and then there was also like electro going on at the same time, or like electro disco or electro funk. And yeah, recently I've been making a lot of those kind of rhythms, and maybe one day they will also see the light, but that day is probably far away. If I have to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think inspiration comes and goes, and once, you hit that, let's say, wavelength of ideas and inspiration, you just kind of lock in and you finish it. But but I really like the release. Freak is obviously my favorite.
Thanks. Yeah, I love that one too. Shout out Jacob. Couldn't have done it without him.
Yes. And yeah, it's a good thing that I got the premiere on Berlin House Music for it.
It's an honor.
So yeah, check out Imad from Berlin. Check out his new track, Freak. That's Freak.
Just Freak.
On Heat Up Music. Check out his SoundCloud. And
you can also check out my Instagram. My Instagram has been like it was actually just a private Instagram, and then it just grew and grew. And now I'm starting to realize that maybe, a lot of people my age, they don't really use Facebook as much, I feel like. And it's just kind of dying out. All the algorithms are just kind of kicking people in the wrong places. And I started realizing that I should actually be putting my pictures on Instagram, where they belong, right? It's a photo platform.
yes.
So, yeah, you can expect a lot of house pictures and a lot of pictures from the last couple years that I think are worth sharing on there for the public.
Cool. So, at
Imad from Berlin.
Imad from Berlin.
Nice and easy.
All right. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me, Yusuf. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, and we'll see you in the future.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Have a good one.
So good.